Welcome from San Diego, California. We are reaching you in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, live through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. The International Training Center brings us together once again through this original video conference program, which joins distinguished organizations representing education, business, and government in Mexico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Argentina. We also welcome Spain, the United States of America, the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C., and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, known as UNCTAD, in Geneva, Switzerland. During our program today, we will look at the health and pollution that face us in our society today and what appropriate preventative and remedial measures should be taken. This is the third video conference of the year 2002 series entitled Excellence with a Global Flair. I'm Richard Page of the Page Law Firm, specializing in international business litigation, arbitration, and mediation, and your moderator for today's program. We would like to dedicate this program to the memory of Dr. Rama Venkata Chalam, who was a valuable contributor to many international training center programs. Dr. Chalam, a well-recognized toxicologist, a nature lover, and the proponent of the implementation of environmental management systems, passed away last year. He is greatly missed. The new realities of international terrorism, new production processes, new technologies, and the explosion of world trade has created a new challenge for organizations from the educational, business, and government sectors. An uncertain, deteriorating environment that threatens our ecology and our very health, both at home and in our work and our places of work. Our productive activities cannot be completely immune to these threats, but organizations can develop clear and responsible environmental quality management strategies. During this video conference, we will review the essential elements of these environmental quality management systems, the concept of ISO 14000, the growing toxicology issues of our 21st century workplace, including the consequences of bioterrorism, particularly the impact of anthrax, and the risk tolerance we must address to minimize the impact of this effort. Our speakers will discuss issues of prevention, the cost of managerial involvement, and the requirements of education and training to develop a sustained and responsible environmental quality program at all levels of the organization and the community, regardless of their size or sophistication. Let me introduce today's speakers. Professor Teresa Thomas is Professor of Biology at the School of Mathematics, Science, and Engineering at the Chula Vista campus of Southwestern College on the border between San Diego and Tijuana. She is also the founder of the Biotechnology Education Consortium of Southern California in 1993, the part of the Biotechnology Initiative Steering Committee for the California Community College Economic Development Network. In addition to her work at Southwestern, Professor Thomas teaches courses such as medical microbiology and human heredity at many regional hospitals. She was previously research associate at the Proctor Foundation for Research in Ophthalmology at the University of California Medical Center in San Francisco, California. Professor Thomas holds an MS in microbiology from the University of Southern California and an MS in biology from the American University of Beirut, Lebanon. Our second speaker is Dr. Mirat Gurol. She is the Blasker Chair Professor and Director of the Environmental Engineering Program at the Engineering Department at San Diego State University. Dr. Gurol is a member of the Educational Editorial Board of the Journal of Ozone Science and Technology and the Journal of Advanced Oxidation Processes, the Chair of the Advisory Board of Purotech, Inc. Her consulting clients in the area of environmental sciences have included the City of San Diego Water Department, the Istanbul Water and Sewage Administration in Istanbul, Turkey, as well as several international engineering and chemical companies. Dr. Gurol's academic interest is focused on treatment technologies of contaminated water, air, and soil, and of hazardous wastes. Her research efforts are concentrated on ozonation, photochemical, and catalytic oxidation processes for removal of environmental pollutants, and she has published over 60 scientific articles in these areas. Her research has received funding from a number of private and governmental organizations. Dr. Gurol was previously a faculty member in the departments of Civil Engineering in the School of Environmental Science and Engineering and Policy at Drexel University in Philadelphia. Dr. Gurol holds a Ph.D. and an MS, a Master's of Science degree in Environmental Engineering and Sciences from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the United States, and an MS degree in Chemical and Environmental Engineering from the Middle East Technical University in Ankara, Turkey. Welcome. It's great to have you with us for this video conference. I'd like to begin with a couple of introductory questions, and there are several, so I will take each one one at a time. First, the well-known magazine, The Futurist, in its March-April issue, presents on its cover page the concept of, quote, life in the eco-economy, close quote. The concept of getting today's global marketing in sync with nature. Do you believe this is a realistic and economically desirable future scenario, Dr. Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it is very wise and very economically excellent strategy for both the present as well as for the future. We will be discussing this in more detail during this video conference. However, as far as the basic principles of ecology go, eco-economy is synonymous with eco-sustainability. Our globalization situation at the present time, with the enhanced population of all of the peoples of the world, with the enhanced utilization of our resources, our balances of the services and resources, as well as our situation with the uncertainty of the political systems and other pollutants in the environment, make it very, very important for the 21st millennium that we plan very well and base all of our economic strategies, social strategies, local and global, on the principles of ecology and environmentology.
I have a couple more questions. What are some of the professions that are being expanded or created by this eco-economic or environmental revolution? Dr. Thomas, do you have a couple?
That's an excellent question. I think that this is especially important for students and for professors that are planning curricula, as well as for the local cities, the regional planners. There are certain professions that need to be enhanced. For example, the public health strategies dealing with public sanitation, the epidemiologists detecting diseases, monitoring, the preventive medicine type of work or planning, as well as projecting. In the workplace, we have a numerous number of positions in biotechnology, as well as in accountability of our hazardous waste, accountability of the pollutants that possibly could go into the environment. And then finally, the kind of new techniques that we are not aware of now, utilizing the strategies of the past to make them more relevant to the needs of the present. We will actually be looking at including things like the GIS, the geological information systems, as well as the very importance of the internet for both resources and communication and collaboration.
Dr. Gurol, what about in toxicology? New professions, new challenges, new curricula that should be added to universities. What's your belief?
In terms of toxicology, I would say this is primarily, again, in the environmental education area is very important. And in fact, this is really not new. Some of us who started our profession in 70s, 60s already knew about the importance of these concepts. And we were educated, we were raised on those basic concepts of managing environment and being very careful about toxic material, hazardous material disposed to the environment. And yet it took several decades for the general public to understand the importance of this, and now that became a more mainline educational material that is being incorporated into many different areas of education. But it is obviously been at the center of toxicology education from the very beginning. And now all the engineering disciplines that deal with problem solving, that deal with finding ways to provide better environment for the public, especially, for example, civil engineering and chemical engineering, which is involved in manufacturing, chemical manufacturing, for example. They now pay more attention to what they do with their byproducts, end products, the emissions. And those were not necessarily in early years the main consideration. They were more interested in profitability rather than what they discharge to the environment. So those are now changing.
Let me ask one more. We have two more questions, so we have to be a little brief, so we reserve time for questions from the audience. Is this phenomenon truly compatible to the agricultural revolutions that have preceded it? Briefly, Professor Thomas.
Oh, more so than ever. It is absolutely compatible, and the need to make it more compatible, enhance the communion between the needs of the past and the needs that are currently in place. Example, we know that pesticides, for example, and certain metals, certain poisons build up in the ecosystem. And so the use of DDT, of these kind of things in the environment, has been controlled. So what we are looking at now for new strategies would be the biotechnology, as well as the insertion of genes into the agriculture products to help to enhance agriculture. When you talk about sustainability, if we lose the topsoil and don't replace it or don't have strategies for maintaining it, we are going to, and that happens with our deforestation, we are going to have more tragedies as we had last week, 2 weeks ago with China, with that dust cloud taking the topsoil and the whole city of Beijing, and then finally the countries of Korea, Japan, and the United States faced that cloud of equivalent of the Dust Bowl that we had in the United States. We cannot afford these kind of tragedies, and we must find ways in both agriculture as well as technologies to be smarter in our ways of doing business.
Dr. Gurol, I'm going to ask you this last warm-up question. why is being, quote, responsible with environmental quality management at the center of this new growing reality?
That's an interesting question. Why it is at the center? I think we are getting wiser. I think the new generation, the young generation, is getting more concerned about the environment and our future generations, because we finally came to the point, maybe grow educationally with understanding of the interactions among different parts of ecosystems, which will eventually affect us, to the point to realize that if we are not very careful without industrialization efforts, then we may jeopardize the future of our generations, coming generations. So that is probably at the center of the answer to this question.
We have to keep going. Thanks for your answers. Let's begin now with Module 1, in which Professor Thomas will talk about the current health and environmental issues that are a cause for concern.
Thank you. These are interesting times in our workplace, in our homes, and neighborhoods. There are new and challenging realities for people and the living world that we call our Mother Earth. Due to our modern technology, the microscopic world, or nanolife, has generated new possibilities for the third millennium. What is meant by globalization? We are now neighbors with all other countries of the world. I believe we are all conscious of this reality and how it affects our lives. Distances are getting shorter, and with the advent of technologies such as the supersonic transport and the internet. Numerous public-private partnerships have been established between parties located on opposite sides of the globe. Of course, using a common weights and measures system, the metric system, has contributed greatly to globalization. Likewise, the new euro and common monetary standards and currency for Europe is the prelude to an even stronger association, as well as collaboration between members of the European Union. The possibilities of the dreams of visionaries such as Malcolm X to have an organization of African states are being reawakened. Fundamental to world trade, multinational collaboration is a benchmark of economic globalization. And what about some of today's new technologies? In the current world, we are looking not only at new paradigms for doing business and for educating others, but also for obtaining energy, getting the power to run high-tech equipment in the workplace. We are looking at new millennium technologies for having babies, for preventing or curing illnesses, for repairing tissue, or creating bionic organisms, and for building homes. There are new technologies for entertainment, for socializing, for having fun. In the area of environmental issues, which is our main concern today, the Internet is the great resource. Some good reference sites are the Environmental Protection Agency website, www.epa.gov, which provides extensive information concerning all realms of the environment: the hydrosphere, lithosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere. The website for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, www.cdc.gov, also provides bountiful information on current trends concerning public health. It also includes an authoritative epidemiological database, resources, and current public health events announcements. Catastrophic events from the inundations and the oceanic temperature changes of El Niño and La Niña to the forest fires and deforestation have an impact on our climate and environmental quality. The recent dust storms in Beijing, China, all of these are examples of events that we label natural. But my question is, are they actually completely unpredictable natural events? Has mismanagement of our environment actually led to these so-called natural events? How is this possible? How much of this is due to our not utilizing ISO 14000 standards and environmental leadership and education at all levels of society and the world? What power do we have to improve this situation or outlook, especially in the light of the new technologies of the third millennium, and also of the threats of 911 and other types of terrorism? Since 911, the global community has become more aware of various microbes in our environment. In fact, both benevolent and terrifying microbes play a major role in our environmental and individual health at every level of our existence. From the many faces of the diarrhea-causing Escherichia coli to the mini microcosm of the earth growing on a school child's petri plate that he or she has exposed to the playground air. Micro critters have abounded on this planet for 3.5 billion years. From the ancient creatures or archaeobacteria to the mosaic of modern-day creatures, many people are concerned about the bacterial microbe, Bacillus anthracis, the cause of the anthrax disease in cattle, swine, and other hoofed animals. The anthrax bacillus was the first pathogen to be connected to a specific disease. This was done by the father of bacteriology, Robert Koch. Professor Koch established the anthrax bacillus, isolated them from the animals suffering the symptoms of disease called a zoonosis. He was able to take the purified anthrax microbe and re-inoculate it into healthy hosts, who then came down with the same zoonotic disease. We call this anthrax. Even prior to 911, the anthrax bacillus had been in the news. The Department of Defense, DoD, in the USA felt that the anthrax spores had potential for use in germ warfare. As a result, they made it mandatory for new recruits to be vaccinated against this bacterial agent and its toxins. This mandatory vaccination of military personnel was protested by a cadre of recruits. They feared reactions to their health as well as their well-being from the vaccination. After 9/11, there were more than 20 cases of anthrax. Some of these cases were expressed as the inhalational form of anthrax. The inhalational form focuses on the pulmonary system, and it may prove fatal if untreated. The early symptoms are similar to those of the flu, with respiratory distress and malaise. If this is not treated, the agent may spread from the lungs to other systems of the body and cause death. The other recent random anthrax cases were mainly expressed as the cutaneous form of anthrax. This form of anthrax is due to the resistant bodies of the bacterium called spores. The spores are not reproductive agents or bodies. They resist dehydration, lack of moisture, lack of food, acidity, and so on. If your skin is intact, you will have a better chance that they will not cause problems, as long as the spores are not also inhaled. However, if they do penetrate your first line of defense, the healthy skin, then they are expressed as a lesion that looks like a boil gone bad. It is good to note that anthrax is not considered contagious from human to human. You must be exposed to the spores of the organism. So what may you do to avoid problems? First, visit the website of the Centers for Disease Control. Again, that is www.cdc.gov. Secondly, use your best judgment when receiving suspicious mail or other type of packages. When in doubt, don't. In other words, without hesitation, immediately contact your security officer or your local health officer or public health agency. Remove yourself from the area and do not visit other offices until you cover yourself or get professional advice. If anthrax exposure is suspected, the preventive measures called prophylaxis must be initiated. In any case, do not spend your life worrying. More damage is done by smoking, the flu, or driving with cell phones than is possible by the anthrax spores in the general population. The influenza virus and the cold virus are responsible for more loss of productivity in the urban workplace than any other microbes. In my estimation, the best approach to influenza, as well as cold, is the early vaccination, as well as change in individual behaviors that help prevent transmission to others, especially in the workplace, the classroom, or other social settings, including the public transit commute by way of bus, train, trolley, or whatever. In the workplace, equipment used by many people during the course of the day, such as duplicating machines, fax machines, phones, faucets on sinks, doorknobs, push panels on the public doors, and the like, are common sources of infection, not only for influenza, and the common cold, but for many other sources of primary and secondary infections. These may include Streptococcus pyogenes, the cause of strep throat and flesh-eating disease, among other infections. Recently, scientists have been focusing on other toxic and hazardous elements. Environmental scientists have exposed the harmful impacts of PPCPs. PPCP stands for pharmaceutical and personal care products. These PPCPs include medications such as Tylenol or ibuprofen, Motrin, Advil. They also include prescriptions for cardiac disorders, hypertension or high blood pressure, female sex hormones for birth control, or hormone replacement therapy during menopause. PPCPs also include chemicals such as DEET, a very strong chemical used as an insect repellent worldwide. The questions that should be considered include these. What are the cumulative effects of the PPCPs on the health of certain segments of the population? What impact may they have on the flora and fauna of the hydrosphere? There is an impact on the developing embryos of these animals and ultimately on the fishing industry. Environmentalism is not the same as ecology. Environmentalism involves the application of scientific data and principles to life, to nature. One does not have to be a scientist or an ecologist in order to be an environmentalist. Ecologists describe nature. Environmentalists prescribe for nature.